Alright guys, so today we're working on a Yamaha Bruin front brakes and master cylinder. I wasn't going to film it, but I figured, hey, why not? So you take the master cylinder, which is this handle with these two bolts. Before you loosen those two bolts, you want to take the two hoses. One is electrical, the other one is the hydraulic hose. You loosen that up and you unplug that other hose from the bottom. So just kind of trace it, follow it down, and find where the connection is. Here, I'll show you what this electrical connector looks like. And you'll unplug. You'll push on this little tab and it just comes apart. Just finding it and reaching it and unplugging is the hard job. Once you've replaced it and bolted it all back on, you'll zip tie the lines back like you found them and make sure the hydraulic line is tight. Then you'll bleed the brakes by taking this cover off. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's get down below where the brakes are. You'll take the wheel off, put in some jack stands. These are the brakes right here, right by the brake caliper. You will see the bleeder valve. You're going to loosen that after you take the rubber piece off, and that's where the brake fluid comes out and you bleed it. But let's work on the pads first and see if we can get everything back together. The brake pads in this caliper are held by these two pins tightened with this torque screw. It's a T30, I believe. You'll loosen them up before you take off the caliper. Now the caliper is removed by these two bolts that you'll see me point to, one on top and one on bottom. Can't remember the size, but you'll take those off and then you can get to the pins once they're already loose from before. I sprayed them a bit just to make it a little easier. Those pins in turn hold the brake pads. You'll see the brake pads here have two holes. That's where the pins go through. Those brake pads face each other and basically go around the disc brakes. They're pushed together and squished by that piston that you see, which we're about to compress back in so we can fit it all back together. The piston was way out and pretty worn down. You'll see in a minute why. As you compress that piston to allow everything to go back together, you want to open the cover up on the master cylinder to let the pressure off. Now here you see the brake pads, the new ones up against the old ones. There was nothing left, so the piston was rubbing on the disc. Fortunately, there's no major damage, but the brake pads go on either side of that disc, if you didn't know. And then the pin, as I mentioned earlier, holds them back together, those two pins that go on the sides. Pretty simple setup. And then you'll take the little rubber piece off and bleed the brakes. You'll open that up. First, you'll compress this a couple of times, hold it down, then open that up, let's air out. Close it back up, compress that again a few times, hold it down, and again open that up until you get no air bubbles and no splurting, just brake fluid. Steady stream of new brake fluid. Now don't forget to keep adding fluid to the master cylinder so you don't let more air in, and at that point you're done. Then put the little rubber piece back on this bleeder valve and put the tires back on. You're done.